Hello, good morning, fourth graders. Welcome to our robotics class. This is week 13. So we are in the middle of a multi-week project. It is a robotics research project. And so there's a lot of different things that I'm trying to teach you through this project. Hopefully you chose a robot that you're really interested in, something that you will enjoy researching. That was really one of the first goals, right? Because we want to learn more about robots. Some of the other things that you are learning how to do are research, right? Learning how to go to the internet and research about a topic. So in this case, you're researching about a robot. And so learning how to find research articles, read them, and pull different information about them. We also learned how to include your sources, right? So this is where you got your research from. And then last week, we talked about some of the research questions and how can you find the answers to the questions when you are going on the internet, right? So I'm just gonna go through each thing really quick, and then I'll tell you about the third part, and then you're going to have, so what I'll do during this week is I'll go through everything, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about how our research should be an ongoing thing when we're doing a project. So, you do a little bit of research, you read it over, you go back, you do a little bit more of research, you kind of refine and you keep adding things in. And so you build upon your research. So we'll be talking about that. And I'll introduce Google Slides to you. And then next week, I'll do a full lesson about Google Slides. And so I'll show you how to make your research into a presentation. And then I'm going to be giving you the entire break to finish the project. So the goal will be when you come back from the Christmas break that you'll have the entire project done. And so there's 3 parts to it. There's part 1 where you chose your robot, you found a few sources. There's part 2 where you had all your research questions and you were adding in the answers to them. And then there's part 3, which is your presentation, right? So 2 of them are in Google Docs, and then the last one is in Google Slides. Okay, so let's take a look at part 1. So this was part 1, and you were supposed to choose the robot that you wanted to do, right? So let me just make this a little bit bigger, okay? And so you were supposed to choose the name of the robot that you wanted to research, and then go online and get at least 3 sources for information about your robot. So if you remember, I gave everybody a list. So let me see, I can pull it up again. I gave everybody a list of robotics companies. So at this point, I believe, let me see, I think mostly everybody selected a robot. There might be, so I gave you guys a list. So this was the list of all the different companies, and you were allowed to pick something that wasn't on the list if there was something that you were interested in. So let me just quickly look at my list here. So we had 2 students who still did not submit in their choice for the robot. So I believe you know who you are. So you didn't even start this yet. So that means you 2 kids need to this week go on this list, choose one of the companies, and then open up the part 1 and fill this in. Put the name of your robot, and then you're going to go on the internet and you will be going to, I requested that you guys use the Safe Search Kids because I think that's a good website. And so this is the Safe Search Kids, and then you're going to research your robot, and then you're going to copy and paste 3 sources into the sheet. Okay, so that was what you were doing for your part 1. Now part 2. So this, I believe that I received, I'm going to tell you guys in a sec. So this is where you have to actually go do your research. So I believe I have half and half on this one. 6 of you finished this. Let me just double check my list here. Yeah, so I received 6 of part 2s, people who went in and actually answered the research questions. So there's 6 of you who did not do it. So that's going to be your goal for this week. If that's the 6 of you who didn't do this, is you're putting the name of your robot, and now you're going to the different websites and you're answering the questions. What does the robot do? Tell us about it. What company makes the robot? What's the name of the company? How does the robot help the world or help people? And then you're going in and giving information about energy, movement, sensing, and intelligence. And then you're giving 3 fun facts about your robot. So that was your assignment that you were supposed to. So we need this information to create the presentation, right? We can't create a Google Slides if you don't have any research to put in it. And you didn't, there was no reason to type full sentences. You're allowed to use short bullet points to answer the questions, right? Because the short bullet points are then easily, you can just copy and paste them into your Google Slides when you make your presentation, right? So please make sure that you're answering all of these research questions, because we want to make sure that you can now move on to the 3rd part, which I will introduce you to during this lesson, and then I will fully go into it next week, okay? So 3 parts. If you're missing any of them, so there was 2 people that were missing the first part, 6 people missing the second part. And so the goal is by next week, all of you are done with part 1 and part 2, and then you can just spread the break working on part 3. Okay, so that's really our goal for you guys this week. All right, so I'll quickly show you guys again. So when you're researching something and you're inside of Google Safe Search, let's just pretend that I always just use Spot because I feel like it's an easy one. But so if I type in Spot Boston Dynamics, I'm going to scroll down and you're going to see that I'm getting a lot of websites about Spot. So then I can click into them and I can look for the information that I want to answer. So I'm just going to quickly peruse. I don't need to read every line. I'm just kind of looking for main topics and see what can Spot do. So again, I'm going to fill it in my sheet. It says Spot can walk, trot, avoid obstacles, climb stairs. So I'm going to go back into my sheet with the questions and I'll start putting in some bullet points about what Spot can do, right? And then I'll go through each of the questions and I will answer them. And I might, if I don't find the answer in this article, I'll hit the back button and I'll go back and I will look for another article that I can find some information in. And then whichever articles I'm using, so for example, if I did get a lot of information from this website, I would click here at the top and then I would right click and do copy. And then I would make sure that I have this. If you want to even add into your sources page, let me go back to part 1. Make sure that you have the links to them. So I'm looking for the full website link as your source, right? So that way somebody who's looking at your research can say, oh, they got a lot of their research from this website here. And then they could click on it and they could go read it themselves. So why is that important? I think I might have mentioned it last week. It's important because when you are presenting on a certain topic and you're sharing information, you're doing research, you need to tell the people that you were, presenting to, where did you get all of this from, right? You can't just say, oh yeah, I thought of it in my head. That's not reliable, right? You want people to respect your work. And so you have to tell them where you got it from. And the other thing is that, there's something called plagiarism where you go in and you copy somebody else's work and then you just put your name on it. And that's not okay because somebody took time to do research and write an article. You need to give that source credit inside of your research and say that this is where I got these couple of bullet points was from this article, from this website, right? And then that way people know, oh, okay, this person, they did the right thing. They did their research, they cited, they gave credit to whoever, wrote the article, and then they summarized. They didn't just copy word for word, right? That would be okay. You can't just copy word for word somebody's work. You have to give them credit. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so I'm just going to introduce you guys now to Google Slides. So if you go into your Google Drive, and you go to new. It's this kind of orange yellow one. This is a Google slide. It's like PowerPoint, like Microsoft PowerPoint. You could start with a blank presentation. You could start from a template, and I'll show you what some of the templates look like. They have different, kind of backgrounds and things. So if you have kind of like a theme that you might want to go with, you might want to click into one of these. Or if you would just prefer to start with a blank one, you can just go to blank presentation, and then you'll be able to choose different themes. So they have all sorts of themes that you can click here on the side. So say I just choose this theme. So now everything will come in that color. So now remember, each of the slides will have one of the questions, and it'll have a few bullet points. So the purpose of Google Slides is to present and share your research in a presentation, and it's visual. So it means that the people are listening to you speak. So you're not going to put these long paragraphs on there. They're just going to see some highlights on each slide of what you'll be talking about, right? So you never want to have word for word what you're going to be saying on the slide and you're just reading from it. That's not the purpose of Google Slides. The purpose is to give a visual to the audience of just some main points that you'll be talking about in your presentation, right? And it's just supposed to be kind of like a guide, right? And even for you. And you never want to just be staring at the screen reading from your slide. You want to know what you're talking about, right? And you just kind of talk openly with the people, share about it, and then you just use your slide as a guide, and they could use it as a guide too. So you always want to have your title slide. This is where you would have the name of your robot, right? You would also have your name on there. So that's what you would have there. With Google Slides, you do want to give this a name here to save it. So you could have, this would be Robotics Research Project Part 3. And then I would just put your name too, so I know it's yours. Okay, so that would be perfect. To add another slide, you click in this white area, right click, new slide, and then you'll get a new slide. And so I'm going to be telling you guys what all the slides are next week. So, and then you can work on it over the break, but I'm just introducing you how to use Google Slides now. So let me give you an example. So say your first slide, you were going to maybe just put the purpose of the robot, purpose of Spot. You want to add in a few bullet points. So you can go into format, bullets and numbering, and you can add in however type of bullets you want. If maybe you want to use that kind, you can be really creative with this. I'm just putting in a few things just as an example, and you'll see every time you hit enter, a new bullet point will come underneath. And you can even change, you can play around with the font color. Oh my gosh, I changed the whole background. You can do that if you'd like. Yes, you can. You can also change the font. You can, of course, you can change the font style if you want it to be something different, you want it to be bigger. So the same things that you could do in Google Docs, you can do in Google Slides as far as font style, font size, font color. And then the designs are really nice because you can choose, different designs for each of them. So you can test them out. If you feel like you're like, oh, I'm kind of bored of the one that I have, click on a different one and it'll show up for you. And then until you find one that you like, then once you find one that you like, you can keep it. Okay. So that I would say for this week, your goal is going to be to make sure that you have parts 1 and 2 done. And then you can start going into Google Slides. You can name your file in the Google Slide. You can start choosing a theme. And then next week, I'm going to show you each of the slides. I'll go through every slide and I'll show you what I want on them. And then you're going to work on it over the break. So your goal, please, if you did not answer the research questions. So part one, you chose one, but if you didn't do part two, these questions, you need to have it done this week, okay? And if you did do part two, you can go back in and see, oh, maybe I need, like, look at some of your sections. If they don't have enough information, it looks like they maybe only have like one little short bullet point. You need to make sure you have about 3 to 5 short bullets about each of the questions, right? Except obviously for the name of the robot. Purpose, you should have about 3 to 5 little bullet points about the purpose. The name of the company, probably just 1 bullet point, but you could put where they're located. That would be another bullet point. Helping the world should definitely have 5 bullet points. Mentioning about your robot, what does it do to help people? So please focus on getting these questions to a good amount, you know, in your answer. So that way it will be very easy for you to then go back into the Google Slides and just copy and paste all of the information into the slides, right? And so the last thing we want is to have a presentation with, like, you know, hardly any information, where it's not even going to really help educate somebody about the robot. So you're thinking, you're presenting this, pretend you're presenting this to people who they never heard of this robot, they don't even know what it does. And you want to give them a good overview and a summary about your robot. So by the time they are done listening to your presentation, they're like, oh, wow, now I know about Spot the Robot. And that's really interesting, right? And they actually learn something. So you're teaching people about your robot. So please make sure, go back and look over your questions and make sure that you have enough in your answer where you're actually answering the question, okay? Because that's a good research, you know, person. They actually take time to make sure that their research is correct, you know, it's full, that they're answering it, you know, to the fully possible way that they can. And that, of course, that they're citing their sources, where they got the answers to their research. So that will be your project this week. Please finish it up, send it over to me before next week, so I'll know that everybody's on the same page. And then over the Christmas break, we'll have you guys working on the slides. But don't worry about that yet, because next week I'll go through the video and I'll show you how to do all the slides. Okay, guys? So have fun with this. Remember, you were supposed to choose a robot that you really were interested in, right? That you wanted to do. So please make sure that you have fun with this, okay? I'm gonna also show you guys how to add in some pictures next week too, which I think that'll be a lot of fun too, because we want to see pictures of your robot, and even we're gonna maybe even add in a video too. So please finish part 2. Make sure you answered all of your questions. And then we will see you guys next week, okay? All right, bye guys.